Ladies and gentlemen, from the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace and Justice, Deacon Gerald Celente.
Hello everyone, this is Deacon Celente, and we had just celebrated St. Patrick's Day a few days ago. Saints. Where are the saints today? Doesn't seem like there are many saints on earth, because there's no speaking of peace, not a word of freedom or justice. Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice. But all they do is ramp up war. More and more war talk every day. First, of course, it was the COVID war this 2 years ago, where they robbed us of our freedom and our justice. And now it's the Ukraine war, where we're losing our freedom, peace, and justice. No talk about peace. With the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice, we're all for peace, and we're all talking about it. And as everyone knows, we have rallies. Unite for peace and restore freedom. We'll be doing that again coming up soon. Mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind, said John F. Kennedy. I am totally opposed to what Vladimir Putin has done in the invasion of Ukraine. I am fully aware of the whys. As you well know, I'm the publisher of a magazine, the Trends Journal. Only publish the facts, and have been publishing them as the Ukraine coup began in 2014 and before. What was going on there? So I'm totally opposed to it. To me, there could have been a better solution. And one of the solutions is going back to JFK. When I was a young man in high school, the Cuban Missile Crisis was going on. Americans had put missiles aiming at Russia and Turkey. And the Soviet Union said, get those missiles out of there. We don't want them aiming at us. And they said, no, we're not going to move them. They're staying there. Okay. You keep them there. All of a sudden, there are missiles now in Cuba. They're in Cuba aiming at America. So what happens? John F. Kennedy said, okay, we'll pull our missiles out of Turkey. You take them out of Cuba. Okay, you got a deal. And that's what happened. So to me, what Putin should have done to stop the expansion of NATO, which has 16 countries, when the Soviet Union broke up and the deal was that NATO wouldn't expand 1 inch further, and now from 16 it's 30, and all of the war maneuvers going on off the coast of St. Petersburg by NATO, the naval maneuvers, and the American fighter bombers 14 miles off the Russian borders flying. I said, you're going to keep it up? We're going to put missiles in Cuba. That would have maybe brought a JFK solution. But what happened after the JFK solution? He didn't want war with Cuba, and he didn't want the Vietnam War. And apparently, a lot of people didn't want JFK. Because several months after he was assassinated, Lyndon Baines Johnson took America to war against Vietnam. A war which I lived through. No one is singing, all we are saying is give peace a chance. Nope. All they are singing and saying is hatred. This is from the New York Times on Friday. Survivors found in theater rubble, but suffering widens. Well, how come they didn't put these headlines and show these photos of the millions and millions and millions of people that Americans killed in Vietnam, in the Korean War before that, in the 2 Iraq wars, in the ongoing, never-ending Operation Enduring Freedom Afghan War, the Iraq wars, the Afghan war, the Libyan war, the Yugoslav war, all U.S. NATO wars. They never put headlines like this of the mass murder. Biden makes it personal by use of the word war criminal. When President Biden declared to reporters on Wednesday that President Vladimir Putin was a war criminal, he was speaking from the heart, his aides said. Mr. Biden and his top aides framed Mr. Putin as a pariah, an indiscriminate killer who should be standing trial at The Hague. Well, so too should George W. Bush and all the people that lied America and NATO into the Iraq War. So too should Barack Obama. You could Google it up. In the Libyan War, Gaddafi has to go. Barack Obama, in the Syrian war that's killed over 600,000 civilians, Assad has to go. Bill Clinton's murderous wars. Again, you could Google it up. Madeleine Albright, UN ambassador, on 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl. And Leslie Stahl asks Madeleine Albright, are the sanctions and what Bill Clinton is doing to Iraq worth the death of 500,000 Iraqi children under the age of 5? And Madeleine Albright said, yes, the price is worth it. Why isn't the New York Times saying that they should bring these people up for standing trial at The Hague? Mr. Biden amplified his attacks on Thursday, claiming that Mr. Putin is a murderous dictator and a pure thug who is waging an immoral war against the people of Ukraine. I agree. I am totally opposed to this war. And so too is Joe Biden for all the wars that he has supported that are totally illegal and totally immoral. American officials, led by President Biden, are responsible for the Nazification of Ukraine, one of Russia's top lawmakers said, and should be tried before a court. In fact, another lawmaker said, it is time to create a modern analogy of the Nuremberg trials as Russia prepares to denazify Ukraine. So you're getting two sides of every story. No one is talking about peace. No one is talking about peace. U.S. accuses Russia of crimes after bombing Mariupol theater. It is a crime. And they're trying to drag China into it. If you want two sides of every story, I would suggest you go to Global Times and other Chinese newspapers, because what they're reporting from President Biden and President Xi in China's discussions on Friday, it's very different. Xi urges U.S. NATO to talk with Russia, opposes indiscriminate sanctions. Judge Andrew Napolitano. Sanctions on Russia violate the Constitution. And Judge Napolitano goes on to say how this only hurts the people. And so too do the Chinese. The Ukraine crisis is already a headache for the U.S., and it will not like more confrontations with China, they said. The U.S. and its politicians should abandon the fantasy that they could solve all problems by imposing sanctions or coercion, as it is impossible to solve global problems, including political ones, crises, or economic issues, without China and Russia. It is not the business of the United States to interfere in other nations. The Ukraine president says his country needs more fighter planes and missiles and defense systems to repel the Russian invasion. And the United States is sending more of them. 800 million plus a recent 2 billion, plus another 13 billion in both defense and so-called humanitarian aid. They are ramping up this war, killing more people needlessly. CNN, Russia advanced stalls, but not its brutal strikes. Did CNN ever publish the headline, USA stalls, but not its brutal strikes? In the 20-year war of Afghanistan? Did CNN ever write, U.S. advanced stalls, but not its brutal strikes? In the criminal war, the Iraq War, launched on outright lies? They are teaching us hatred. Hatred is dominant. People hate the Russians. Why are you blaming the people for what your leaders are doing? And all these companies pulling out of Russia, all the sanctions that they're putting on, who are they going to hurt? The people. Will they solve the situation? Not at all. Chinese Commerce Ministry spokesman Zhao Feng made it clear that China opposed any form of unilateral sanctions that have no basis in international law. They not only fail to resolve security issues, but also harm the lives of ordinary people, disrupt global markets, and make the world's already slowing economy even worse. They are making bad situations worse. And then we heard from NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg has said that there are now over 100,000 U.S. troops in Europe. 100,000 U.S. troops in Europe. 150,000 U.S. troops in Afghanistan could not beat a third world nation with some 89,000 troops. The escalation of war is leading us to World War III. If we don't stop it, it is going to continue to escalate. Stoltenberg argued that these troops remain on heightened alert. Quote, deterrence of defense is not about provoking a conflict, but prevents conflict. deterrence of defense, he said. It's about preserving peace, he said. Adding that NATO has increased support for Ukraine by delivering lethal arms, as well as ammunition, quote, critical for the Ukrainian force to mobilize against the invading Russian forces. How can you say that this is preserving peace when you are sending more ammunition and lethal arms to kill people? But yet no one calls this out other than the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice. The support we have been giving them for many years has proven to be extremely important, he went on to say. We've been giving them lethal weapons for decades, is what he said. Stoltenberg spoke after U.S. President Joe Biden vowed that America would defend every inch of NATO. He called it a sacred obligation. It is not a sacred obligation. That is blasphemy of using the name of God in vain. There is nothing sacred about killing people in foreign countries of which you have no business interfering in. But maybe Biden and all the rest have no concern for what used to be the American Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Founding Fathers' warning of no foreign entanglements. Their words, no foreign entanglements. Read George Washington. He makes it very clear. Mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. And that's where we're heading toward. If we don't unite for peace, we are going to die in war. This is from the most decorated Marine at the time in history, back in the 1930s, Smedley Butler. Noting that until 1998, in the Spanish-American War, we didn't own a bit of territory outside the mainland of North America, he observed. That after becoming an expansionist world power, the U.S. government debt swelled 25 times, and, quote, we forgot George Washington's warning about entangling alliances. What I am reading to you, no one says in America or the world. We went to war, we acquired outside territory. It would have been far cheaper, not to say safer, for the average American who pays the bills to stay out of foreign entanglements, said Smedley Butler. For a very few, this racket, like bootlegging and other underworld rackets, brings fancy profits. Yep, brings fancy profits to the military-industrial complex that President Dwight D. Eisenhower, five-star general, supreme commander of the Allied forces, warned the people in his farewell address in January 1961. But the cost of operations is always transferred to the people who do not profit. We must unite to stop this war. Stop this hatred that's being sold. Imagine hating the Russian people. What have they done to us? What have they done to us? Oh, 9/11. No, I don't think that was the Russians. I think that was the Saudis, right? 15 of the 19 allegedly Saudis. Oh, our great war partner that we're helping to kill all those people in Yemen, the worst humanitarian crisis on earth. Brought to you by Barack Obama, our Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and never a headline like this showing the people in Yemen being slaughtered by our wonderful allies, where the people came from that brought us 9/11, but we're supposed to hate the Russians. This is Deacon Salenti. Please spread the word for peace. Again, if we do not unite for peace, we will die in war. Thank you.